Because we grow up being told that these are bad things. We need to avoid them, we need to get rid of them. But without them, it can feel like nothing matters. And this is far worse. Too much pain and suffering is bad for you. It can cause health problems, psychological damage, it can burn you out, it can break you, it can cause you to give up. I remember my first job after university. This really stressful job. I was working long hours, 12, 14-hour days consistently till 9 p.m, 10 p.m. And every evening that I got off on time, I had to go to lectures that evening till 9:45 at night. And every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I had lectures as well. And if I didn't have lectures, well, I was supposed to be studying. And in that time, I lived in this constant state of just overwhelmed. If I watched a soccer game for a couple hours or a football game, I felt guilty. I felt like, oh God, I should be studying right now. I'm falling behind. I'm not doing enough. And over that time, I was miserable. It was too much. It was way too much. But on the flip side of that, you've got your own challenges when things are too easy, when there's not enough pain and suffering. And I've lived this as well. I spent a year studying abroad in Spain, and the classes were already easier for the people who were studying abroad. But on top of that, I only had, for one semester, I only had 6 hours of lectures per week. 6 hours. I had 3 hours on a Monday, 3 hours on a Tuesday. That was it for the whole week. That means I had 5 days off every week. I mean, it sounds amazing, right? You're probably thinking, oh, you're so lucky. That would be incredible. So much freedom. And it was. It was incredible. There was so much freedom with it. I loved it for about a month. And then I found I was watching more and more TV. I started playing video games. My productivity started plummeting. My motivation started plummeting for everything. I remember asking myself, how can I have so much freedom, but for everything I do to feel so pointless? There was no challenge. When things are too easy, two things happen. The first is that without any pain or suffering, we lose meaning. We don't have any purpose. And you see this. A good example of it is in the workforce. A lot of people leave their jobs after about 2 years, 2.5 years. And the thing is, when they start, for that first 6 months, things are really difficult, maybe too difficult, too much challenge. It can be stressful, it can be overwhelming. After about 6 months to a year, it becomes easier, less challenge. And maybe that 6 months to 18 months is kind of the sweet spot where things are hard, they're challenging, but you know enough to feel competent and to feel confident about what you're doing. But then the challenge falls even further, and after 18 months to 2.5 years, it can become too comfortable, too easy. And that's why people quit, seek out another role or another type of job, because they're trying to find that meaning again. The same thing happens when people finish studying in university, they finish their masters, they finish doing a professional designation, and they say, oh, never again, I'm never going to study again, that's the last time. And then after 1 or 2 years, they're like, maybe I'll try doing this other course, it sounds interesting. 2 years in, they're signed up for another course. When we don't have that challenge, when we don't have that meaning, we seek it out in other ways. The second thing that happens when things are too easy is that we start creating our own problems. We start putting more and more significance on insignificant things so that we feel significant. We find ourselves complaining about things that we normally wouldn't complain about. Oh, it's raining 3 days in a row. This weather is just so bad. And then the sun comes out and yeah, but now it's too hot. I'm getting a bit sweaty, it's too warm, it's uncomfortable. You see somebody in a restaurant and the chicken's too salty and they demand to see the manager to make an official complaint. We start putting more and more significance on insignificant things to feel like we have meaning. So if too little suffering is bad and too much suffering is bad, what's the answer? Well, there's 3 things that we can do. The first is to acknowledge that there's always going to be some kind of pain and suffering in our lives. But the good news is that we can pick our poison. Find and choose things that are worth suffering for. Something that's hard, but it's worth it. That might be working out. It might be starting an online business. It could be going back to school, studying something that you actually are interested in. And the second thing to do is to find a balance. We need to take on the right amount of suffering that is sustainable in the long term. The Goldilocks story is a good example of this. So one bowl of porridge is too hot, one's too cold, but one is just right. And it's about finding that sweet spot of the right amount of suffering that is a challenge, that is engaging, but it's not too much. Going to the gym is a great example of this. You see the people working out who spend the whole time reading on their phones. They're doing an exercise, but they're not really doing anything. They're not really paying any attention to what they're doing. And then there's other people who do the opposite. They overtrain, they go too intense, too frequently, too many hours, and they get injured. You want to find that balance, that amount where you are challenging yourself enough to break down your muscles so that you get stronger, so that you grow, but not so much that you hurt yourself. The best video games are experts at hitting that sweet spot. Every single level is a challenge. It makes you try your best, but it's also achievable. You can also overcome it. And as you get better, the levels get harder. And this progress is so addictive. I remember before I was playing a game for months, and then I got a cheat code for it. And I was thinking, yes, here we go. This is gonna be great. I can do all these new things. After just 2 days, I completely stopped playing it because it was too easy. The challenge was gone. So once you find something worth suffering for, and you find a balance for it, the last thing we can do, the third thing, is to dedicate ourselves to reducing that pain and that suffering. Reduce it for yourself, but also for everybody around you, for other people. And as that challenge goes down, because you get better, you get stronger, you take more on. Bring it back up. We reduce it again, we bring it back up, we reduce it again. And over and over and over. And that's life. That's what life is. There's no end to this game. Reducing it and making things better for ourselves and others is all we can do. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications to get more videos on motivational self-help and communication skills. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much, guys. See you in the next video.